Good morning, everyone. With me here, Mr. Darren Buckley, the president of AmCham, the American Chamber of Commerce. He's still with me to discuss in detail about the government policy, how he sees the new set of government policy would attract the business sectors to come to Thailand, and how he views the program or the project introduced to our foreign business sectors attract Thailand. Welcome back again to the Insider. Well, we talk about the relationship between Thailand and the US last week. We also touched a little bit on the confidence that the US business sectors have for Thailand after the up and down time in Thailand, of course, after the political situation, after the incident took place in Bangkok lately. And this time, we talk about the government policy. So I understand that you monitor closely about the government policy, particularly the connectivity, the infrastructure development policy, the link, the railway, the road project. How do you see this?
Actually, I think the infrastructure projects, which have been refined over the last few years now to the current state with the present government, I think they're very important for the future of Thailand. Yeah, if we look at Thailand becoming a part of the ASEAN economic community and the integration now of 10 nations across ASEAN, Thailand's got to look to its competitive strengths. It has the advantage of having already developed its manufacturing sector to be one of the strongest in the region. It also has the advantage of being one of the top tourist destinations, in fact one of the top 10 tourist destinations in the world. And there are a number of strengths that the country has. But as the countries come together, there's going to be a merging and a little competitiveness within the ASEAN bloc going forward. And so the infrastructure plans and connecting the north-south, east-west parts of Thailand with its neighbours, facilitating the easier flow of goods and services across the country, reducing the cost of moving goods and services around the country,
logistics,
and in basically speeding up the time it takes to move things around. Yeah, that's hugely attractive to business. If you travel today in Bangkok at certain times, I don't think anyone really counts the true cost of sitting in very long traffic jams. But if you can bypass that, and if you can use rail travel instead of road travel to move your goods and services, and you can get your goods and services out through state-of-the-art ports much more efficiently and quickly than can be done in the Philippines or in Vietnam or in Indonesia or in Malaysia, then that's a competitive advantage that would attract more inward investment into Thailand. So I think the infrastructure projects are critically important for Thailand's competitiveness. And I think it's good for the domestic economy. Yeah, it's a 7-ish year program of infrastructure. It's a lot of money, but it's money that Thailand can afford, and it won't really significantly increase Thailand's debt to GDP ratios in a negative way. And therefore, as a result, I think it's something that, if done and if carried out, would be extremely positive.
Well, before I forget, you have mentioned the ASEAN community, which of course, by end of this year, the whole region would combine, and it would become a big market, a market of 600 million people. It's a big market. How do you see the challenge and opportunity?
Well, I think when we look at AEC and the coming together of everybody, around the world, the creation of one of the top 5 trading blocs is clearly exciting. The global economy has struggled over the last few years. It's largely been driven by China, and as we've seen very recently, volatility in China, some concerns domestically within China, and finally the devaluation of the renminbi there. It sent shockwaves through the rest of the world because this big engine of growth that has grown up now to be the second largest economy in the world, maybe it's slowing down and it's having some issues with its growth, and that will influence the global economy. So the creation of a new big trading bloc becomes very exciting. And how can the world benefit from this creation? It's exciting, but it's not going to be a Europe. We're not going to have a single currency. We're not going to have fully harmonized laws and regulations. There's not going to be a central parliament for ASEAN. It's a coming together of actually quite a disparate group of countries with different cultures, different religions, different business practices. But it's still coming together. And it's coming together with an aim of, we can work together. No one's trying to be better than the other, but we can come together and we can share the benefits of coming together with ourselves by increasing intra-ASEAN trade flows. But also we can have a bigger voice on the global stage. And with that bigger voice, hopefully, can attract continued inward investment into ASEAN and help continue to develop the growth of the ASEAN economy overall. Positive for all countries. There'll be some jostling in that. And at times, some countries will show that they're stronger in certain areas than others, and there'll be some realignment. As each country finds its strength, there'll be some realignment in how trade and business develops within ASEAN. Countries start to leverage their respective strengths. It's going to be very good. It'll be very exciting.
Less than 4 months,
Yeah.
we become ASEAN community. What else needs to be done in order to make the ASEAN community become a real, body that would attract the foreign investor, that would, create prosperity for the whole members?
Well, we got to see tangible steps at the end of the day. Having the leaders of all 10 ASEAN nations stand together and say we are now one is one thing. But we also need to see harmonization and liberalization across the board in a number of different areas. Now, we fully expect that to be staggered. If you look at the state of Myanmar, you compare that to Singapore, clearly these two different economies are at a very, very different stage of development. And it would just be unnatural to try and hold Myanmar to the same standard as what could be expected in Singapore. But over time, there should be movement towards harmonization and liberalization across the entire bloc. And if the international community can start to see that happen, I think that would be one tangible step. There are a number of different things that could happen, but what's important is that I think that there needs to be a clear momentum within ASEAN, and Thailand is well positioned given its geographical position, given its economic situation, its development here. It is very well positioned to be one of the key drivers of that momentum, to bring ASEAN together so that ASEAN as a whole can reap the benefits of integration.
Well, you said we can be like a key driver, but just to make sure that we don't want to be a leader. The Prime Minister always said that he introduced the Thailand +1 policy, meaning if Thailand's strong, Thailand neighbors would be strong together with Thailand. We want to move together with our neighbors. How do you see this policy? Because right now Thailand is doing everything in order to share our potential. We talk about centrality ASEAN centrality. People say that Thailand is, the advantage of Thailand is the location, geographical location. We are seen as a hub of ASEAN, and of course, but for Thailand, we don't want to just prosper and leave the others behind. No one should be left behind. This is the concept of the current government under the leadership of the Prime Minister. And would you believe that being ASEAN community, we would be able to strong together, to bring everyone together at the same time?
Well, you're only really going to be a strong community if you can bring everybody together and everyone can see progress. Again, if you go back to Europe and you look at some of the issues in Europe, the northern part of Europe seemed to gain at the expense of the southern part of Europe, and many of the challenges that Europe has faced over the last few years have been caused by that inequality. Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, let's face it, they're not quite yet at the same level of development as Singapore, as Malaysia, as Thailand. But I'm not going to say we should have a 2, 3, 4 tier ASEAN at all. Every country should see improvements. You can't ASEAN as a community, and if it's truly a community, well, individual members within that community can't gain at the expense of each other. So you have to work together, and you have to understand the limitations of some of the member countries within the community, and work together to find a way to bring everybody up. We all know a rising tide lifts all boats. Well, we'd like to see ASEAN on a rising tide and all boats being lifted.
Mm-hmm. Apart from you know, the issue of moving together as the ASEAN community, Thailand also introduced, and we are implementing the policy of the special economic zone in order to bring about prosperity to the rural people, as well as, you know, our friends living next door. How do you see the, you know, how do you think that, you know, how do you see this project? I mean, the special economic zone.
It's a good question. One of the roles I also have is I'm a vice chairman of the Thai Board of Trade here. And the Board of Trade talks a lot about trying to increase prosperity in some of the upcountry areas and more rural regional areas of Thailand. The special economic zones at this stage, I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet whether they're really going to deliver the benefits that perhaps we're looking for. Why do they have to be along the border? If we're moving to an AEC that will allow the movement of labour and goods across borders, well, they don't necessarily need to be on the border. They can be somewhere which is a little bit more accessible and more practical. We do want to see, I think Thailand wants to see, through its infrastructure programs and other initiatives, the development of towns and cities and greater urbanization outside of Bangkok.
Well, in fact, correct me if I'm wrong. You know, what I said is special economic zone in the city along the border. It's not just exactly located on the border, but a potential city with the economic growth, with the you know, readiness. For example, right now we have, the first project would be launched at the Masot in Tak, where we already have the border trade. We want to make it become like a cluster of business, not just the trade along the border, but in that area we would have a cluster of business. We would have the education, we would have the service sectors, we would have leisure business, hotel. This sort of thing would make the area become a cluster of the business. It seemed to me that it answers your question, because when we talk about special economic zone on the border, it is not on the border, but it is located at the city nearby the border, and of course already have the potential for the growth. And apart from this project that I have mentioned, we also work closely with our neighbor Myanmar, with the Dawei project, as well as you know, other projects with with 3 countries. I mean, Myanmar, Japan, and Thailand. We are working closely on Dawei project. How do you see this? You know?
Actually, yes. I'm actually quite excited by Dawei. It's a big project. I mean, this is huge.
It's huge.
And there's a lot of challenges. And I know there's been various discussions between the 3 governments on how best to carry this forward. It seems at this stage that there is now a commitment from the Japanese government to participate. And once the infrastructure is built from Thailand to Dawei, then I think the Japanese government have committed now to come in and purchase or pay for the land and go through the initial phases of development. If Dawei can be developed, it certainly increases substantially the capacity for import-export of goods and services out of Thailand. Lam Chabang is a great port, but it's already at capacity.
Yes.
Dawei creates a huge capacity going forward for growth. It creates tremendous opportunity for jobs and development in Myanmar, which will be beneficial for Myanmar. And it starts to open up, finally, the routes from Thailand through Myanmar out to the rest of the world. I think, if I remember the statistics correctly, by about 2050, 1/5 of the world's consumer class will be within a 5-hour flight of Myanmar. Getting access to and through Myanmar strategically starts to become very important for Thailand going forward. And Dawei is a terrific project. Japan's involved because it'll benefit Japanese companies that are here. And if it benefits Japanese companies, it's going to attract more inward investment to Thailand from Japan, and that's positive. And American companies will benefit too.
Well, Darren, one of the very, very important role that you have played, or that the AmCham has played, is providing information to the American investor. Anything that you would like to, to have it clear, or any issue that you want the government to clarify, or you can leave them with me.
Well, I think American investors, there are different types of investors. There are financial investors, and there are those investors that will invest directly into the country. The big American companies that are already vested here, they're looking to see stability, continued stability, and they're looking to see a business environment where we can place trust in the laws and the regulations, that we know that they are, that everybody is going to be held to the same standards under the laws of Thailand, no matter who they are, and we can all play fair. We're very pleased to see the initiatives around anti-corruption. It really is important to American businesses. And so these types of things that the government is working on certainly would be positive.
Oh, thank you. I understand that you are wearing two hats. We finished the first hat. Let's take the first hat off. So what is your other hat?
Well, the one that pays the bills, I run Citibank here in Thailand. We also, from Thailand, cover Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar. So running Citi. Citi has been here now for almost 50 years. We've been in Asia for 110 years, and we've been around for over 200 years. So we're kind of an old institution, but we don't look at ourselves as old at all. And one of the things that we've been doing very much here in Thailand is trying to bring many of the innovations that we've learned and developed around the world to the banking sector here in Thailand, both on the institutional side and on the retail consumer side. Which is why you see Citibank is the largest foreign bank here in Thailand. We have almost 2,500 employees directly.
Yes.
It's a large number compared to other foreign banks, and we invest very heavily in education, training and development and capacity building in the banking sector, which is why wherever you go across Thailand, it makes me especially proud that I see people who not only get out their credit card and say, hey, look, I'm a Citi credit card customer.
I don't have one.
Yeah, oh, we should talk.
Okay.
But what I also see is I see many people who say, you know what, I used to work at Citi. Through the training programs that we have, we've trained a lot of people throughout Thai business, Thai banking, and it's great to see them in the community.
So one issue that this government is working, that is to narrow the gap between rich and poor, between those underprivileged people and the privileged people, of course. How Citibank, support in reducing the gap between these two group of people?
Well, from a business level, a business perspective, it's hard for us to provide broad banking services to the mass population. We're only permitted under the current regulations to have 3 Citibank branches. It'd be pretty hard to put those 3 branches and cover the entire population. So we're limited by regulations in terms of how much we can spread ourselves. So we do it in other ways. And we have many community programs. In terms of assistance, one of the biggest things for us globally is financial education. And through the Citigroup Foundation, we provide across the world, and here in Thailand specifically, support to a number of different areas within the community, in the broader community, not just in Bangkok, but outside as well. Financial education programs. 2 of our flagship programs are one is the School Banks program, where we go into schools and we help students learn about entrepreneurship. And through entrepreneurship and their ability to earn money, we then teach them about the benefits of saving, how to manage a household budget, and we help them set up their own bank inside the school. And the students run the bank, and the depositors have their own passbooks, and all the money is there to incent students to save. And what we found through this program, which is particularly exciting, is not only that the students are able to understand this, enjoy this, and start to make the benefits. The money that they save is used towards their education and their books, and the lessons that they learn, they teach to their parents. And so through the School Banks program, we're actually teaching the broader community in terms of how to manage household finances and budgets, etc. We also have another program which is particularly exciting, which is where we teach financial education to at-risk women. Predominantly this, we go into prisons and women who are incarcerated but about to be released. We provide financial education training to them. And the aim is to try and help these women, once they are released into the community, to be able to manage their own household finances. So not through financial difficulty are they tempted to reoffend and end up back in prison. And this program has been very successful if we look over time, we found that many women have benefited from this, and the reoffence rate of women who've gone through this program is much lower than otherwise we see in the community. These are just two.
Okay.
There are a number of programs in financial education.
That, yeah, this is very important, particularly education. Oh, by the way, would you mind sharing with me, before coming to Thailand, how many countries have you lived?
Well, I'm going to add one more thing, if I may, before I answer that question. There's a couple of programs beyond financial education that we're very proud of. One is sponsorship of the Thai national football team. And we've been sponsoring the Thai national football team now for the last couple of years. And when I first came and we started the sponsorship, I'd go to watch the national team, and I'd sit on the bench with the players because the stadiums were kind of empty. Now we go and watch the team, and yeah, we have to beg like everybody else to get a ticket because the stadium is full. The Thai national team has developed over this period of our sponsorship to a tremendous state. Leaders of ASEAN, obviously SEA Games winners for the last 2 times, and have done incredibly well.
Yeah, this year is very successful years for them.
We have Coach Zico, of course, to thank for that, and the teamwork and the camaraderie among the players is tremendous. But it's been hugely successful, and we are so proud to be a part of Thailand's success here. To the extent that I am pushing as many people as possible to think seriously about Thailand trying to bid to host the 2030 World Cup. Huge opportunity for Thailand to brand itself with a long-term vision and show the world just how much Thailand has achieved from today and the issues that you face today here in Thailand, and how you can move through those issues to 2030 and be the first Southeast Asian nation to host a World Cup. Probably with one of your neighbours, Singapore, Malaysia perhaps, to join that. That would be hugely, hugely beneficial. Be very exciting. And lastly, the City Elephant Nursery up in Chiang Rai. The elephant is a true national symbol. As you know, the Thai national team are called the War Elephants. Well, we have a baby elephant by the name of Denra, and with our partners, the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation, we have our first baby up in Chiang Rai at the City Elephant Nursery. There's lots of things that we're very proud of doing. We very rarely get to talk about them, but it's part of us being embedded in the community. City all around the world is absolutely vested in the countries in which we operate, and that's no different here in Thailand.
One final question. If I asked you to talk to the Thai people, what would be your message to them?
Don't give up. You've got challenging times, but that's okay. We all go through challenging times. Have a vision, set a roadmap to that vision, and work hard together. Yeah, really, at the end of the day, no matter what side you come from, whatever your background, if everyone pulls together with the objective of making Thailand stronger, Thailand will become stronger.
Stronger together.
Stronger together.
Well, thank you very much. That was a fantastic time that I have shared with Mr. Darren Buckley. And of course, he have informed us, he have shared with us so many valuable information. And as a Thai people, I am enjoy and I am thankful for him, for the confidence having in Thailand, and of course for the message he sent to the foreign investor as well as to the Thai people. Don't give up. Thank you very much. สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ